So you want to build a gaming PC or a PC to create content in 2021? Well, I've got some news for you. You have perhaps chosen the worst time in the history of building PCs to build a PC right now. With all the shortages that are happening for the graphic cards, for the CPUs, it's just going to be a nightmare for you if you want to build a PC. But if you still want to do it, you can join me in my journey and see how we build this machine together. So let's talk about the components, and let's begin with the CPU. I decided to buy the Ryzen 9 3900X. Is in my region where I live, it actually cost me more than the MSRP, and the reason I bought this CPU was the fact that, of course, it's got 12 cores and 24 threads, so my rendering times are going to be less. So if you look at the Cinema 4D chart, you can see that this CPU is one of the best CPUs below the Threadrippers that can come and give you better rendering times. Ideally, I wanted a 5950X. I would just max out in terms of the number of cores and number of threads, or I could save some money and go for the 3950X, which again had 16 cores and 32 threads. My challenge over there was that for a single core performance, the 3900X is just way ahead of the 3950, and I wanted something new. So I ended up paying a little bit more than the MSRP to get my hands on the 5900X. So with this, let's just knock the CPU out and talk about the heart of this machine, and that is the graphic card. Now, buying a graphic card in this market is a nightmare. I was able to get my hands on the 3070. Now, for a few dollars more, I could have done a 3080, but 3080 is very hard to find. So the fact that I got a good price on the 3070 was the deciding factor. So my heart is still out for the 3080. I'm gonna build this setup, but if I get a chance, I am going to upgrade to the 3080. But right now with this graphic card, I think I'm covered for Blender, I'm covered for rendering workloads, I'm also covered for gaming. Really, I wanted to get the 3080. Still disappointed that I don't have it. Eventually, we're gonna get our hands on it. And I'm gonna update you how that one goes. My next decision was the motherboard. Now, in terms of motherboards, for the AM4 socket, you have the B450, you have the X570, you have the B550. In terms of performance, it's the X570 motherboard that has everything that you would ever need if you really want to spend the top dollar. But in my scenario, what I had is two options. Either I could go for a mid-range X570, or I could go for a premium tier B550 motherboard. So I decided to go for the B550 MPG Gaming Edge motherboard from MSI. So if you don't need Wi-Fi, you can probably go for the Tomahawk version of the same motherboard, or you can look at the Asus motherboard or Gigabyte, depending on your region and what you're looking for. Coming to the RAM, this was perhaps the easiest decision. I wanted an RGB RAM, I wanted 3600 megahertz speed, and I wanted CL16 ideally or a CL18 timing, depending on the price that I get. So I ended up getting these Corsair Vengeance Pro. They had RGB, they were 3600 megahertz, and they were CL18. For the power supply, again, you have three options for the non-modular bronze power supply from a decent vendor, and they would do you plenty good except for cable management. Your second option is a new tier of PSUs, semi-modular power supplies. They have all the essential cables plugged in already, like your CPU and your power, but then you have these optional SATA connectors that you can fix into your power supply as you need them. So I think that's the best price to performance ratio if you go for a hybrid or a semi-modular power supply. But in my case, I wanted to go for a modular power supply, and I had an option between the EVGA and the Corsair, and the decision was essentially made based on the price that I was getting on both these power supplies. But it is modular, it is 650 watts, which I think is plenty powerful for a system that we're trying to build here today. So hopefully this is going to be more than enough for some light overclocking, as well as the 3080 or the 3070, along with the Ryzen 5900X that we're going to be installing today. So that's my build. That's what I have in mind. This PC is primarily going to be used for content creation, mild gaming. Let's do it.